right, kids. Well, glad to see everybody here on this wonderful Thursday afternoon. Welcome back. Just wanted to let y'all know you're being recorded and it will be uploaded to our member portal. So I got to throw that disclaimer out there and make sure it's okay that you're being recorded. You can always flip off your camera or just leave the scene of the crime if you don't want to be recorded. So with that, it's Inspector Chat night and glad to see some faces we haven't seen in a couple weeks. So welcome back. Welcome to everybody, to the new faces too, and hope y'all get a lot out of this. We got some, I don't know if we have any topics, or if we're gonna just let you guys maybe ask some questions. Maybe you got some good questions to ask. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Sherry, our lovely operations manager.
Well,
Carrie.
I thought what we would do is we would go to each one of our inspectors and let them pick something they want to discuss, and we'll go from there. We'll start with Tony.
Oh, something I would like to discuss.
Mhm.
I don't know. Something that was giving me a problem today, and I think we're going to hit a little bit of problems with it, is language barriers. I had a real difficult time with somebody. He was in Washington, but he, I don't know what nationality he is because I can't even pronounce his name, but we had a real language barrier problem. And an inspection I should have taken a short time took me well over a half hour, and we never really even quite got it finished because he just could not understand some of the things that I was asking him, and I couldn't understand some of the stuff, the answers that he had.
What kind of an inspection was it, Tony?
It was a framing.
Framing inspection? Okay.
Yeah, to give you an example of something, I asked him, I said at one point, I said, I need to see a grade stamp on one of your 2x4s. And I guess I had repeated a couple times. So he finally worked his way over to a 2x4 and he started banging on the side of the 2x4, showing me that it was sturdy. So, yeah, so I mean, so that's, that's always a problem.
Did you eventually get a grade stamp from him?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. All right.
Then he wanted me to send him pictures of, he didn't have any, like hurricane ties or anything like that on. And I could not, no matter what I tried, I could not explain to him what we were looking for. So he asked me if I could send him pictures. So I did that after, sent him and a list of everything that he needed to do. And I don't even know if he'll understand what I sent him.
Is it possible for us to maybe send him an email and say, hey, can you have someone more, adept or more
fluent?
I don't know. Fluent, yes, thank you. Fluent with construction, accompany you during the inspection. Maybe that's send that along with the photos that he asked you for, and try it that way.
Yeah. Was it a DIY or a manufacturer?
I know I think he's manufactured.
Well, we're going to have problems down the road, if we can't get the communication.
Yeah,
and I think, while we're on the subject, what about, and that's in the US, that just happens to be somebody with, that you can't really understand. I know there's a pretty heavy Hispanic population here. So, if we could get an inspector that's fluent in Spanish, that would be helpful. And we were having problems with the Quebec crowd up there, minimalists. But do we have somebody that speaks fluent English now doing those?
Yeah, they're doing pretty good now. Yeah.
You mean French?
Yeah, but the guys that we
They
do the
speak French, but
No,
they speak English.
yeah, but they're doing a lot better. Really good.
All right. How about Turkey?
I had another consultation with them just within the past couple of days, and it was a group consultation. So it was the engineer from Virginia who was involved with it. He was leading the whole discussion. There was a couple minor hiccups, but once we both discussed it through, I understood what they were saying, or vice versa. So that's working out so far. But I know Tony's had a conversation with them because they, I guess you had sent them over a photo or something like that. Or maybe it was a different, I don't know. I can't keep it all straight, but it's slow but sure. They're looking to, that group is looking to finish up those 3 with us over there. And then we went into a lengthy discussion on how they can bring the rest of the units over here unfinished, basically unbuilt, and cart them over here and then have them built over here. So that's what the general consensus is at this point right now.
It's almost a better idea.
How about Panama? Are we doing all right with Panama?
Tony, didn't you have that Panama one on
Yeah. And that
Monday or
was,
Tuesday?
yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah, that went pretty well.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, just so everyone on will know, we are going to be starting our international building questionnaire that will be on our website, so that the international builders that come to our website can answer these questions. We did discuss this yesterday. I did discuss this yesterday with Robin and Nancy. We are going to have to require US made products or US approved products.
Oh, yeah.
So that's one thing that will have to happen, is US approved products.
Yeah, if they're coming to the US, they have to have US approved products.
Yeah.
If we inspect in Australia and it's going to stay in Australia, we might be able to do something different there. We're talking to some people in Australia right now. So
I believe Sherry also thought it might be a good idea, and I agree, is to have as a prerequisite of international members, membership, to have them, in addition to filling out that form to find out what materials and methods they're currently using, is to have them do like a mock session where we can speak with their translator to make sure they're fluent enough prior to throwing our inspectors in on the deep end and expecting them to figure it out.
Yeah.
We are going to require a consultation prior to them signing up as a full member. So I think it's just going to work out better for us and for them in the long run. I don't want them signing up and finding out that they can't use their approved item products, because that's a lot of their thing, is to build over there in Turkey and then send to the US. So it saves them a lot of money. But I don't want our inspectors trying to determine what's a compromise of US products. So
yeah, I think the best way to go with that is we definitely need that consultation, and then the person that's going to be responsible for speaking or translating or advising during the inspection should be on that call, and then we can review that list with them on the call, and we can make a determination right then and there if they're the person to be or not to be.
Absolutely. Okay, Rich, did you have anything you wanted to talk about?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Speaking of turkey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, no, I don't. I mean, I'm sure there's some floaters around there that I'll pick up on at some point, but right now, no, I don't have anything.
Okay, Frank, I know you're new, but you've had some inspections now under your belt. Do you have anything that you want to discuss?
Well, I had 2, and that was concerning with completing the the trail inspection with the flooring down. And where the one person that I had, he wanted to go ahead and, have the inspection on it. And apparently he didn't quite understand that he cannot close the whole entire floor. That we have to have a visual on
Right.
the pan, the type of insulation and everything there. I got with Tony, and I discussed that with him, in which I explained to the customer that we can do that on the next inspection. And apparently then he understood what I was saying. I mean, I don't know what is explained to them in the beginning of what is necessary, what has to be done for us to do our inspections.
Right.
But like I said, I ran into two of them like that, but we got them cleared up. And because like I said, Tony is the person who I run to get my answers. And he does well, does really well. But he's
Me too, Frank.
But that's
He's
but
gonna
that's
he's
what-
gonna
what-
start charging you here now,
Yeah. She said I charge her. I do want to jump in on that though. What I'm getting, and I don't know if Rich is getting it, but I know Chad got it the other day. People, us telling them that we're requiring something and them coming back and saying, oh, no, wait a minute, that's not what your website says. Your website says something completely different. So and I don't know when the last time they read the website or looked it up. And I haven't got a chance to go back over all the things on the website, but I know we're getting that occasionally. So we got to make sure that when we decide to make a change, that it does get to the website. Chad had that problem, I guess it was yesterday or so. with
Day
before
something that he
yesterday.
was requiring. Yeah, so I mean, that's something that we do need to stay diligent about, is making sure that when we make a change, that it does get there to the website.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
I had
Yeah, I followed up with that inspection today. And I originally had that inspection and had that discussion with them. And then you and I talked, Tony, about that. And then we realized that even we were making a mistake for a while
Right.
there, because it was circuits. And then so then I went back to him. I let him know, via phone, and I said, hey, this is where we're at. This is what needs to be done. And then, Chad had that conversation with him, and then I had another follow-up with him today. So, but all is resolved, at least on that end. So we just, like you said, that we really, that's one of the things that I'm really hesitant about doing is putting certain things on a website. Like when we put them on, we definitely need to put dates with them or something, that we're posting it at, because it always gets hairy, having something on a website.
I like to save everything that we have, all the changes that we're doing to the NOAA Plus, save all of them until January 1st.
Yes.
Make the announcement and have people come on board. One of the things that we had talked about that, if you could talk for a minute with this, what do you think about having some kind of plans when they build something, that they send some plans in for us?
Yeah, I think it's really a good idea.
I'm mixed on it, because the concerns are, where do we stop with the plan review? And then the other issue is, do we refer back to those plans during the framing inspection and so on, just because to make sure everything matches? You know what I mean? So it really puts us in a certain spot, doing it,
Well,
ask front. Although I would love plans up front, I'm unless we start getting double, like dual screens to really keep track of stuff. I'm a little hesitant on that.
Well, I hit the one today that was a framing one. And it was a good sized trailer. I think it was like 34 foot or something. And only one window in the entire home was operable. And
Mm,
that was the kitchen window.
Oh,
That was the only window. So if we had had plans and looked at that previously, we might have been able to avoid that problem with him.
I have a set of plans up I'd like to share. This is a tiny house that we're building for an underserved, I guess I could say, family. If you've got a minute to take a look at these and see if, I mean, these are really basic, but if this would be enough for you guys to be able to, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
yes.
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 So basically it's a 1/4 inch to the foot scale. Basically a outswing, a 2868 outswing door, a 3050 single hung, and then a 2050 slider in the loft, a 2020 fixed in the bathroom. The electric panels location is right here. This is a bed. And it shows, you know, LP Smart Side, 2x4, 16 inches on center, R15, house wrap, 3/4 tongue and groove plywood for the floor, R15 in the floor, 6'8" to the loft, 2x6 rafters with R21 insulation, metal roofing, ice and water shield. So that's, and then just the elevations of it. You know, that's really minimal as far as I'm concerned, but it kind of covers all the bases.
It does. It does. And that is a big help.
It does, but the one thing that we all have to understand is that, you know, I don't know who drew them up. I'm assuming you have something to do with it, Robin, but, or whoever, but.
Yeah,
the
I
person
drew
that-
them up.
Yeah, see that's where I get a little hesitant, because you know what needs to be looked for, or you know what needs to be, you know, put out there on paper in order to get it. You know, we might have some back and forth with DIYers or something like that. And I think if we can if we can come up with a way to make this as painless as possible, you know, maybe have a template like this and have a template for a fifth wheel.
Mhm.
And then, you know, fill in the blanks kind of thing. You know, what are you using for wall coverings? What are you using for insulation in the walls? What are you using for ceiling? You know, if we can have like little cutout sections and not so much an actual plan review, but more of a fill in the blanks of our plan, I think that would go a long way.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
and the only reason why I'm putting this out here is as long as they're building an RV, quote unquote, they're going to be okay. But we are getting, Colorado is not going to approve RVs to be lived in full time. You can live in them temporary, but we live in them, but they have, and later on, I want to talk about what they're doing, but they are, they're wanting to do ICC, and they want to do Appendix Q, and they want to do amendments to the Appendix Q to fill in the gaps. So I've got about 7 or 8 gaps that I have, and I wanted to share them with you guys and see if we need to add something to it. But they are going to require plans. I don't know if this is going to be sufficient for them, but we'll, you know, I'm going to try to make it number one, that they'll allow remote inspections. And number two, that, you know, they don't have to be stamped plans by an engineer. They can be, you know, something simple like this. So anyway.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, if
even to, I was going to say, even to Rich's point, you know, when we do a as-built, you know, there's that questionnaire that goes out to them. We could do like Rich said, actually create a sort of a checklist, but at least they would give us window sizes, lumber sizes, insulation, what they're going to do with that. you know, a number of electrical and so forth. I think even just like Rich, even a checklist like Rich was talking about would even be better. Would not be better necessarily, but would be a help.
Be a help, definitely. Yeah, especially
Yeah,
when it comes to ES and things like that.
yeah, and it would save some of these guys that use 2x4s for the roof rafters, you know, right away.
Mhm.
If we had that checklist, we'd see that right away and we could stop that.
Yeah. Leanne's got her hand up.
Leanne has her hand up because Jonathan has a question. Well, Nancy actually asked a question too. So can we do some questions now? Nancy, back when we were talking about the subfloor and trailer, she said, can't we verify the trailer from underneath? And haven't we accepted photos for the subfloor insulation?
We have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if there's no pan liner underneath, yeah, we can see what we need to see for the most part. It's not the preferred way, but we can definitely see it. Or if they have photos to begin with, because I actually just had one 2 weeks ago where they had the subfloor down and the pan liner underneath and it's insulated already. And then, you know, I told them, listen, yeah, you know, I need photos, or I need you to show me underneath. I have to see it. And they provided photos. Thankfully, they took a lot of good photos. But you know, it's really up to each person to get it right.
And the one that Frank was talking about, I contacted the builder and had them send me a video. They told him that they had a video of when they were putting the insulation in and so forth. So I had them send that to me and I reviewed it, and it was okay.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, and then Jonathan has a design code question around braced walls and braced wall panel calculations. I think, let me move down here. I think it's broadly applicable. Is this the right forum to ask it, or should I schedule a consultation?
Well, well,
Ask away, Jonathan. It's good to see you, by the way.
Okay, good to see you guys too. Stop me if this goes more detail than is useful in this call, but we're, finalizing designs of a 26-foot by 8.5 foot. And we're doing what I've seen a lot of other folks do, and I'm kind of curious your best practices code around this, which is a big window on the end, effectively, right? And so, when you start going through kind of braced wall calculations with that small 8.5 foot wall that you've now put a big window on, do you guys care? I mean, hopefully you do. I care. And then as I go through, what are you using in terms of wind, seismic, as we do calculations on, we'll probably do a brace wall panel on the side to give it the stability. But I don't know, can someone maybe speak to that? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
It does. So what, we're looking for 130 mile an hour wind, 3-second gusts, 30 pound live snow load, or live snow load,
Ground snow load?
Live for 30 pound, and then 10
Okay.
pound dead.
Okay.
And then as far as wall bracing goes, we're not trying to dive into the nooks and crannies of the wall bracing too intensively. We're keeping it as basic as we can, making sure everybody has adequate headers over everything, load bearing ends and not. Because what we noticed, the big tendency is on the front, the very front and rear of the units, where it's typically not the load bearing, it's a gable end. We tend to see a lot of large windows in those areas, and
Right.
we've had a couple times where they had to go back and say, hey, you have to have a full size header in there. We do have a header span chart, and it mimics the IRC, what the International Residential Building Code is.
Right.
So definitely take a look at that. But as far as wall bracing itself, like I said, we're trying to not go down that road as much as we can within reason. Now, if we see you know, literally a house full of a house full of walls or a wall full of windows, excuse me, then
Right.
yeah, we're gonna need to do something intensive in that point, but it's more of a case by case basis at that point.
I
Yeah,
know
agree.
that Tumbleweed had a design on the 8-foot wall that had a door and a window, you know, a 3-foot door and a 3-foot window. And obviously there's, you know, in an 8-foot span, 8-foot space, there's 6 feet of
feet left.
opening.
Right.
There's not enough room for shear wall, plywood or anything like that. So what their engineer designed was underneath the window, they put a 4x12 glulam beam in, and apparently that met the requirements for the shear strength on that 8-foot wall.
They're basically doing like a portal wall, basically, like a garage framed it out. That's what it sounds like.
Well, it
Yeah,
was
just a-
under the window.
Like a reverse.
Just reverse. Okay.
Yeah, and then what
Yeah,
you could
we're
also,
trying to.
sorry, what
Sorry,
you could also
you're delaying.
is you can go, you know, end to end with a full length header instead of, you know, getting your window separating, getting your door, just go full end to end to eliminate the racking.
Yeah, I've had a couple builders do that.
Cool. Yeah, I've been trying to stay to prescriptive stuff to, you know, avoid having to do engineered solutions.
Absolutely.
Has anyone looked, I'm just curious for, if I can ask one follow-up question to this, you know, for homes that are placed in high, you know, California, certain parts of California, for example, where there's large earthquakes, you know, because they're not tied to the foundation, it's not even clear to me that it matters because of if the ground's moving, the home is going to have a whole different set of forces than if it's you know, if it's foundation built. Has anyone, I'm just curious if there's been any research or anyone's looked at how to think about putting a tiny home on wheels in a D2 location and what happens during a 7.5 earthquake and how to build for that.
We
Well,
had one last year. We had one last year that actually had company come in and put in they were earthquake proofing company or something, and they put in all these concrete piers that went way down and all this reinforced metal and so forth, making the platform that he was going to set his tiny house on earthquake proof, I guess, as much as they possibly could. So yeah, some people do look into that, and they were either in upstate California or Oregon. I think they're in upstate California.
Right. But you guys are basically using the wind. The wind is the key parameter.
Well, we also look at the chassis. You know, the chassis. It's a rigid chassis, and you know, when you're traveling down the road and you hit a pothole, in essence, you're in an earthquake.
Right.
So that's one of the things that we look at, is, you know, how was the chassis built, and everything else is built on top of that. That's the same idea of, you know, the concrete piers that go down, you know, underneath, whatever's supporting it. Is it strong enough to withstand, you know, the seismic forces of an earthquake?
Cool. Great. Thanks. Appreciate it, guys.
I have a question from Kelly. She's getting ready to do her stage 5 and would like to know, hi Kelly, common problems you guys see during stage 5 inspections. And what, I know the answer to the second part. But
Never happens. Everything goes smooth all the time.
Don't
Kelly,
worry.
we actually hope that you have everything completed that needed to be completed in stages 1 through 4 by the time you get to 5. And if that's the case, your 5 is usually easier than any of the other stages.
Mhm. Yeah, just think of the best way to think of 5 is think of it as move in, live in, ready. Like literally everything ready to go. That's the best way you can prepare
Yeah.
for it.
I always refer to it as life safety inspection. When we do our
Yeah.
final, I always say it's basically a life safety inspection. Looking
Mhm.
for the fire extinguisher, the smoke detectors, you know, the whole thing.
One of the
Guardrail.
things that we are talking about, and I think it's going to happen January 1st, is when you do the final inspection, have power and have water hooked up so that they can test, your GFCIs and things like that. So we're not doing it until January 1st, but you might as well go ahead and get in the habit of it.
The one I did today, I don't know if he'd be able to have water or anything. It looked like he was in the frozen tundra.
Yeah, I have a question on the water. Because
I'm sorry?
I have my system winterized, and I know I did pass the plumbing inspection. And it was going to be, I'm in Michigan.
Mm,
So
Yeah. Yeah, winter
Bless
winter
you.
is a challenge, on these.
Well, I think the only question, one of the things that how do you test whether you have the hot water and the cold water hooked up correctly, without, because that wasn't tested on the rough inspection, making sure that, I think what they do is they turn off the water to the water heater, and then if any water flows out the hot water side, then they're switched. So I mean, that's a good point, guys. And if we're going to require it, how do we handle it when they have the unit winterized, or do they winterize it after the final inspection? And what does winterizing mean, Kelly?
well, I have all the piping blown out because I wasn't going to try to make it to move in until after the winter.
Mm.
So all the piping is blown out. There's no water in the system right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you have antifreeze in the system, or do it just have the pipes blowed out?
It's just blown out.
So in your traps, you're making sure there's no water in the traps, in the toilet,
Yeah.
and things like that. Yeah.
Instead of making
Well,
it- I was gonna say, instead of making it mandatory, could we do, if possible, have water on if possible? Because I know some in the wintertime, it is going to be a challenge for some of them, especially the DIYers.
Well, and maybe that's the case, and we put in our notes whether it was or it wasn't, and if there's problems and it wasn't inspected on a stage 5, then that's something that the builder or the DIYer is going to have to figure out afterwards,
yeah.
because we won't be able to inspect it.
And we're just trying to help our builders, Kelly. I know you're a DIY, but if we didn't have it on the builder side, and he sold the unit, and then they have a problem in the springtime, sometimes it's very difficult to get the builder to go back out there after he's already been paid for the
Yeah.
unit.
Right.
Definitely.
Right.
So it's basically what we can do is, just sign, put in our notes whether it was inspected or not, especially more for manufacturers than DIYers. DIYers, I don't know, will be doing too much inspecting in those type of areas during the winter months. So, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, good luck with your final, Kelly.
Yeah.
Well, part
So would
two-
I then have to make sure I have water for the stage 5?
Not
Then
to, not at this time, no.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay.
That won't be
thanks.
taking place till January 1st.
Do you have electric there that you could plug up?
I do.
Okay.
And gas. It's just the water system. We didn't want freezing. So
Okay.
Right. Well, part
would
2 of your
suggest-
question, after you pass stage 5, you'll receive your certificate and seal in the mail. So make sure your address is updated with us, because we'll mail it to whatever address you put when you joined. I
Okay.
knew the answer to a question.
You will
Um,
also get a digital copy emailed to you as well.
Mm,
So you'll have
okay.
a copy emailed of your certificate with your data plate. And then your original and seal will come through priority mail.
Oh, good.
Roy has a question. Hi, Roy. He has questions about the height restriction on-site, off-site hybrid build possibilities and a new building roofing material called Light Pan by a company called Botswana.
Like, yeah.
Hey guys, I didn't realize most of you guys were the inspectors. It's great to see my inspectors, Richard and Tony. I don't think Chad could make it. I think he just had delivered a baby yesterday. So, but it's great to see you guys all here. Yep. And I really appreciate your organization. Without your help, my first project would have been a disaster, and yeah, I would have wasted a lot of money and gone nowhere. I think it was Sherry who initially took my call and explained all the options, and I'm really happy I went with you guys. So I, in an effort to find a way to build to maximize the height, so to maximize the loft space, I came across a company called Botswana and their so-called their seemingly revolutionary product called Light Pan. I wanted to, and I reached out to that company and spoke to their CEO Harrison, and he said he's a member of NOAA, and it seemed like his product was certified by you guys. I just wanted to make sure it's approved by NOAA, and if you would allow any structure that would be above 14 feet, can I do like offsite, onsite, kind of like a hybrid construction? So build up to like the bottom of the roof, and then use these light pan panels as a roofing material without any traditional lumber frame at the site when it's transported to the site.
Roy, did you say they were approved by us?
I believe so. I think Harrison said he's not only a member of NOAA, but he passed the or it's certified by NOAA. I wasn't
Well,
sure, so I wanted to hear from you directly.
Yeah, we don't certify material. That's not our something that we do. However, if it has been tested and is able to be used in residences in homes that are used as dwellings, then and they can produce the documentation, the engineering, and all that kind of stuff, then yeah, we would approve that. And in my mind, it sounds like a SIPS panel that you use for your roof. And I've seen, I don't know if it's foam with something on both sides or something like that.
Yep, that's exactly it. Fiberglass sandwich between or foam sandwich with fiberglass.
Yeah, I know a little bit about those. It's kind of like bolt holes. They make the fiberglass on site. So they're doing the different layers and the resins on site. Doesn't sound as rigid as a SIP panel to me, but it may be sufficient. I don't know.
Yeah, and I would say if you send us the company name and what the product is, we can always look it up for you and see what we feel about it.
Okay,
Yeah,
so none of you guys heard of this company called Botswana and their product called Light Pan?
I haven't.
No,
I've heard of
haven't.
Botswana, but I haven't heard of Light
Yeah.
Pan.
Me too.
I've
Okay.
looked into it a little. It's I don't think they've probably gone through all the material testing they need just yet, but I'm probably wrong. But once they have that with all the data and the numbers and all that, that's what the engineers are looking for so they can do their job.
It does. You know what? Yeah, I'm looking it up now. Company
I found
website.
it.
They do have evaluation reports, numerous evaluation report So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it'd be definitely look through, and see, see what's what, but yeah, we can definitely take a look at that.
Okay. And about a question about the height restriction. So if I wanted to build something above 16 feet, you know, including the loft, is it possible to do that? I know a lot of the road, there's that road restriction, but if I built a roof separately and, somehow put that at the site, join the roof and the rest of the building at the site, how would you inspect that? Can I even get this inspected?
Well, here's the deal. You can do above 13'6". But if you do, then you have to get a special use permit to move it. And you'll need someone that can check the route and make sure you're not going to hit any trees, power lines, et cetera, et cetera. A company that moves houses, they move houses that are, taller than 13'6". If you wanted to do something that was constructed in the factory and then something done out into the field, as long as we can, as long as it meets the standards that we're building to, or the code that we're building to. Some of the questions in my mind is, if you're going to put the roof on later afterwards, are you going to have any electric up there? Where's your vent pipes going to be? There's a lot of things that go into it, and how is that going to be attached, and et cetera. So, not that we can inspect on the site. We can inspect other things on the site. We would inspect the framing and everything else in the factory. And then once you brought it out to the site, we could inspect that on the site, but just make sure that, during the process that you're using to construct this thing, it's going to work for you with connecting all the electric and connecting the roof down to the unit itself.
Has
Yeah,
anyone, do you know if anyone has done this kind of method to create a taller house?
Yeah, we've seen one that Zach Giffen built, and it had a second floor on hydraulics that would raise up, kind of like, a slide out on an RV would go
I
sideways.
see.
This one went up, it
Oh,
raised
yeah.
up. And and I think I've seen two of those houses. One of them where just a section of the house raised up, and the other one where the entire house, whatever it was, 24, 28 feet, that second floor would raise up once it was on site.
Yes, a couple of years ago, someone came to us with, I reviewed his drawings on it, with one where the walls would fold down. But I don't know, I don't think if he did ever do it, we didn't inspect it. Because I never heard any more from him on it.
no, Boxable bought that.
Yeah.
That company,
Yeah.
Boxable, they bought it.
Mhm.
They bought that design and ran with it. Now,
Mhm.
as far as the height, I'm just genuinely curious. With the height, like how high would your actual framing be? Like
The
are we-
actual framing would be, I'm hoping I could reach up to 16 feet, so that you might
Oh,
actually be able to stand, when you're in the loft.
so you're
And
looking
then
from chassis, from the top of the chassis, subfloor, 16 feet above that.
hmm
So in
Okay.
other words, your second floor is not going to be a loft. It's going to be a second floor. It'll be taller than
Pretty
5 feet.
much. Yes. Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
give you,
At the peak.
almost 20 feet from the ground to the peak then.
You'd be hard pressed to move it. Is
Oh,
all
yeah.
I'm
Oh,
saying.
yeah.
That's why I wanted to have the roof separate, and hydraulic would be nice, but it might be a little too complicated. So I was thinking maybe just have it in two piece, and then join it at the site. And if I wanted to do that, can I get that inspected and pass the inspection.
Well, Roy, why don't you draw it up, draw a set of plans up, shoot it over to us. We'll take a look at it and we'll give you some feedback on it. Kind of hard to visualize without having something drawn up. But yeah, I
Okay,
would say go ahead and
So-
draw it up and send it over.
And
Yeah, it'd be nice if-
I was gonna say, my other concern, Roy, would be that whenever you do finish it and it's that high, that you'd really have to stabilize that trailer frame because of the height. You're really getting top heavy with only an 8.5 inch or 8.5 foot base.
So that's why I wanted to use LightPan. They're 6-inch thick foam, and they only weigh. I estimated the estimated weight for the entire ceiling, the gable ceiling, or the gable roof is about 900 pounds. So
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty.
Well, to me, the roof weight wouldn't be a big problem, but the wind event,
That's what I
event
just-
on that size of a, it's like a big sail that's going to catch a lot of wind and could potentially be an issue. Broadside wind
That's what I was
event might.
gonna say. The higher you go, the more the wind's gonna affect it.
I see.
Not that it's not impossible. I mean, they build 2-story houses all the time, but they're usually, wider than 8'6".
Right.
And if you're going to have a special use permit, why don't you make it 10 feet wide?
I was actually gonna go wider than 8.5 feet, so that would definitely require a special permit.
Yeah. And if you go if you go higher than 5 feet in your loft, you may have to count that into this 400 square footage. You have 400 square feet to deal with. So if you're actually putting a second floor on, you may have to count that as square footage in that 400 square feet.
Mhm.
Okay, does that what is the significance of the 400 square feet threshold?
We're using
Does
that.
Mark-
We're using ANSI 119.5, which is 399.99 square feet. If you're going to build to IRC, you can do pretty much whatever you want. And we're going to talk here in a minute about how we can build to IRC if we've got enough time.
Okay, all right. Thanks for your answer, and I'll go ahead and submit the drawing. And if you could look into that Boxvana light pan and let me know, or yeah,
Sure.
yeah, let me know if this will be a material that I can use.
I know on screen rooms, a lot of screen rooms, they'll use that foam with aluminum on both sides for a ceiling. And they span pretty good ways, 4-inch and 6-inch. So, all right. If there's any other questions, Leanne? I don't want to jump in here if we've still got outstanding questions, but I did want to talk about IRC here for a second.
Oh, yes, one just appeared. Hold on one second. From Sharon, do indoor electric on-demand water heaters such as this, I can't show the link, require an overflow pipe to the outdoors? It doesn't appear so. I will send the link to the inspector, Sharon.
Yeah, no, we put in indoor on-demand hot water heaters and they don't require an overflow.
Yeah, if it
You know,
does, the manufacturer will already have that piped ready for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only if the manufacturer.
Okay.
The only
you don't
thing
need to
is,
see-
I talked to somebody about this the other day. You just have to reemphasize, just be sure that it is designed to be indoors. Amazon is selling a bunch of them and they're saying that they're good for tiny houses, boats, they're, your bathroom, and they are not.
Mm.
So
Yeah, but
just-
these are propane. These are
yeah, that-
propane,
that-
right,
that's
Tony?
propane, right, right.
This is an all electric.
Oh, is it on demand?
Yeah.
Yeah, Stiebel, not sure I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Tempera Plus whole house electric tankless water heater.
Go in the chat, Tony, if you want. You can click on the link there and take a look at it. But the only thing I would be concerned about is On-demand hot water heaters take a lot of power. In other words,
Yeah.
some 240 amps, some 260 amps, some 340 amp breakers. So make sure that you have enough house power in order to run a all electric hot water heater. We talked to one builder Monday a week ago, I believe, who's using an electric hot water heater out of Germany. If you remember that one, Leanne, and they call for a 150 amp breaker, but he said he's used it with 40 amps on a short runs, and apparently it works just fine. You know, if you've got a 50 amp and you've got, you know, a 40 amp breaker on it, then the way it works out, if you add up all the breakers, you're going to be over the whatever it is, you know, 50 amps or 100 amps. If you add up all the breakers, but the idea behind it is they're not on all the time at the same time.
Right. And it is rare that we even see electric on-demand hot water heaters because of the electrical requirements on them.
Yeah. And that's if you're going 50 amp, because we've seen some 100 amp, you know,
Oh, yeah.
units too. So. All right. Anybody else before I kind of jump in here?
I don't see anything else. Oh, Eric said just put in a 115 amp tankless for a 1-bedroom ADU.
115 amp tankless. Yeah, well, that's got to be multiple breakers then. There's not.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the brand, but yeah, I mean, it was a triple 40 breaker, and just the stupid breaker was $100.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even heavy gauge wire, yeah, it costs.
Yeah, wow.
It's convenient, but it costs.
So we got a couple of minutes here. I think, let me check my time. Yeah, just a couple of minutes. Colorado is going to IRC for their, you can still build RVs, tiny house RVs, but if you're going to live in them full time, they're going to require them to be built to IRC, and they're okaying them to be built to IRC. What they're looking at is IRC and then taking Appendix Q and putting amendments to it. So one of the things, obviously we can put arc fault breakers in, which we're not requiring right now, but that would be certainly a National Electric Code would require that if it was to be lived in full time. And then, you know, what about the you know, ground rods, you know, that kind of a thing, where it's another thing in my brain. But a prescriptive rule for a chassis as a floor system. I heard somebody on the call, I remember who was talking, trying to stay with prescriptive. What's nice about prescriptive is if it's already prescribed, quote unquote, then you don't have to have an engineer stamp on it, sign off on it. It's already prescribed. So if we could get in Appendix Q, something that would have a prescriptive rule for the chassis as a floor system. Most of them are going to be 2" by 5" or 2" by 6" main runners and 2x3 cross members or 2x4 cross members and outriggers, or maybe an L angle for an outrigger, but you know, just some kind of prescriptive floor system for the chassis. That would be good. And a prescriptive rule for a foundation, even though if they're built in a factory, they're not set on a foundation, but you know, if you could do a HUD home, they have the manufacturer says, this is how often you have to put piers and how the tie downs need to be and all that. So there should, even though the building department would use this in Colorado, could use it. Well, the building departments that don't have, and there's 39 of them that don't have, counties that don't have building departments, but the rest of them, and they would be using the prescriptive rule for foundation in those 39. But in the rest of them, if there was something written, they said the local building department probably just go ahead and adopt it and use that as what they were going to use. The other question was frost line. If the chassis or the floor system is rigid enough to move on the highway, we talked about, you know, seismic and potholes and things like that. Would it be able to sustain some movement from freezing and thawing? And so when you design this foundation, would you have to go below the frost line or would you not? And maybe you have to go out and level it in the spring. Then the other thing I pulled out of applying building codes to tiny houses from NFPA, could the loft be considered a raised bunk bed? And they say in that publication, they say in a tiny home with a proposed raised sleeping area, the best approach to allow its use may be to request from the authority having jurisdiction an equivalent alternative per NFPA 5000, which we're not using, but per IRC section R104 will allow an alternative. The request would identify the intended use for sleeping and the specific limited area / clearances, access, and the intent to permanently install what would be otherwise considered a raised bunk bed. So I'm throwing that out there as a possibility. If that happens, then we would not have to have a egress window in that raised bunk bed. That egress window would have to be somewhere in the quote unquote bedroom. But, you know, that's going to be always an issue trying to get a 5.7 square foot window up in a loft that's got 24 inches of height in it. Not
Rob, I
impossible.
don't mean to interrupt you, but I am 1 minute late for an inspection.
Well, you can go. You can go.
I have to go. See you guys.
Bye, Tony.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right. The other thing is we have to, you know, I mentioned this and they said that in IRC, you do have to have a bathroom, a lavy, and a toilet water closet in every bathroom, and you have to have a kitchen sink in every kitchen. And in a lot of the tiny houses that we see, they'll have a shower and a water closet or toilet, and then you'll go out into the kitchen is right outside the door of the bathroom, and you just go out there and use the kitchen sink to wash your hands. So that would have to be an amendment if we're going to continue to allow that. And if you don't have to put a sink in the bathroom, then you wouldn't have to put in that 20 amp circuit to an outlet, a GFCI outlet, because right now the bathroom would have its own 20 amp circuit that would, you know, it couldn't be tied into another 20 amp, according to our resident expert who had to go take a call. But am I right on that, inspectors or guys?
Yeah, you're spot on. Yep.
All right. Since the home is still movable, would the unit need to have the traditional grounding requirements, you know, with a ground wire, with a ground rod or ground 6 feet apart, or a UFA ground, or, you know, or something like that? Or could it be more like a pedestal in an RV park where the ground, where you plug it in and now the unit's grounded? So that would not fly according to IRC right now, and that would have to be an amendment. Correct, guys?
Right.
And the same thing with the wastewater and the water hookups. That's not in IRC. There's not an RV style wastewater and water hookup. And then the last thing I wanted to share is I did some calculations on the landing in Appendix Q. And basically a drop axle trailer is 22 inches, and then you add 3/4 plywood to it. You're at 23 inches from the ground to the finished floor of your first floor. Then the minimum ceiling height in the bath and kitchen is 6'4", and I don't even like 6'4", but if we're going to work for minimums to show you that this doesn't work, we'll work the minimum at 6'4", which is 76 inches. You have 4 inches for the loft to get to the loft floor, 6 inches for rafters and sheathing, and that's cutting it kind of close. It's going to probably be more 5.5 plus a half plus the roofing and underlayment and everything, but no more than 18 inches from the landing to the top of the stair. Every stair has to have a landing, and these are the requirements for that landing, has to be no more than 18 inches from the top of the landing to the top of the loft. So, you know, the landing at the top, 18 inches, and you also have to have 6'2" of headroom at that landing. So if you take 76 inches, which is the height of your first floor ceiling, add 4 inches for the loft, that's 80 inches. That's the minimum finished floor to the loft floor. So the max down, it being 18 inches, you take 80 inches minus the 18 inches that you can take off the loft floor. So that landing height is going to be 62 inches from the finished floor. So if you add the 23 inches for the trailer, the 62 inches to the landing, and the 74 inches of headroom, which is your 6'2", and 6 inches for the roof plus, you're at 165 inches. And the maximum height is 13.6, which is 162 inches. So you're already 3 inches over, working all the minimums at the minimum that we can do. So my recommendation to them is going to be just reduce the required headroom at that landing, because you're already kind of bending over and climbing in to the loft when we get to that point. And I don't like a 6'4" ceiling. I'd like to go 6'2". I'd like to go 6'4" or 6'8" at least in that first floor ceiling. And if your loft is not over a kitchen and a bath, you have to be, what is the minimum ceiling height in IRC? 6'8" or 6'6"?
6'8".
6'8", okay, 6'8". So then at that point, you know, you're already, you know, way over that 13'6" if you're not using the kitchens and baths. So I'm going to go ahead and email this out to you guys, if you don't mind taking a look at it. If it's any changes you want to make to it, anything you want to add to it. But I'm going to go ahead and send this over to Colorado and let them chew on it a little bit. The next meeting is next week. And so they're going to talk about the amendments to it. So they're asking for us they're looking for gaps. What are the gaps? They said, what are the gaps in IRC? And so I'm trying to come up with the gaps.
Okay.
Sherry, back to you.
I think we're good. Inspectors have anything else they want to add or take away?
Nothing on my.
All
All
right.
right, Leanne, you want to close
Leanne?
us out?
Well, Jonathan has a good question, since you brought all that up. He wants to know if this IRC requirement goes through, what does certification look like? This is Colorado, right?
Yes, this would be certified as a modular home. You would get an insignia from the state of Colorado, but it would still be on a chassis with wheels. It's a tiny house on wheels that they're building as a modular home, and it's going to be built to IRC.
So
Until
Noah, he wants to know, will Noah still be able to certify?
Well, that's to be determined. That's why I'm so involved with this every week. January the 3rd, they're going to talk about inspection and certification. So I'll be on that call for sure.
Oh, that's Kendall. Kendall said, if you build it, they will come. Field of Dreams. Thanks, everyone. Kendall. Now I know who the mystery person is behind the iPhone. All right. Is it anything else, y'all? Any other questions, comments? You got a lot out of this tonight. I know you did. And I know you're going to put that in the chat, thanking our inspectors for taking their time to be with us.
Thank you.
Anyway, this winds up our week of workshops, and Monday is Builder Day, and we're going to have Travis Duckworth with the Soul Learning Institute out in California, and he is doing really cool stuff with students, and it's going to be a really great session. So you guys tune back in on Monday, same time, same place. Have a great weekend. Have a good Friday, and wherever you are, have a great night. And thank you
Thanks,
so
Good night.
much.
guys.
Night,
Take care.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night.